nudge to submit my proposal. It was on my to-do list, and I kept forgetting, so it was nice for the nudge, so thank you for that, and thanks for the committee for accepting that proposal. If you don't know, Ebsco is headquartered north of Boston, Massachusetts, in a little town called Ipswich, but I actually work remotely and live over in Vancouver, Washington, so just on the other side of the river from the Portland airport, where probably many of you flew into. So it's really great to be attending such a wonderful conference and presenting at one kind of in my own backyard. It's nice not to have to travel for that. I've been with Ebsco for about 5.5 years now as a library services engineer. Prior to that, I worked in academic and government libraries for about 8.5 years, working in reference and instruction, working with discovery services. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I do as a library services engineer, probably partway through the presentation where you're wondering, what does this have to do with Koha at all? But if you were here yesterday for Nick and Chris's presentation, you might have an idea of what I'm talking about. And I also wanted to mention a challenge with putting this presentation together. I know a colleague of mine, Albert, has presented at a couple of KohaCons in the past, and I presented at Koha USA last year. So I wanted to create a balance of this presentation of new information for those of you that might not have heard Albert's or my presentation, as well as new information for those of you that have. So I wanted to start out with what is Ebsco Discovery Service, and when I talk about Ebsco Discovery Service and what it is, I like to think back to when I was a reference librarian working on the reference desk. And so a typical end user journey might look something like this, where a student comes up to the desk and says they're writing a research paper on clouds. We do a little bit of a reference interview and find out that you're really writing a paper on abstract art. And so they might need some books. So we would start in the library catalog. And unfortunately, we didn't use Koha, we used another system. So we would start in the catalog. And then most likely they would need to find journal articles. So we would head over either to a subject guide or our A to Z database list. And it looks like the library I used to work at is now up to 496 databases. Even if you don't have that many databases, I think this scenario probably rings true if you're an academic library. So we probably started in one database here, and we probably went to another one, and then depending on their topic, we probably went to one more. So what's that, 3, 4 places we've looked at already? I've lost count. We were also lucky that we had a very rich institutional repository archives on campus, as well as a women's history collection as well. So oftentimes, depending on their topic, we would send them to 1 or 2 of those places to look. So already they're at 5, 6, 7 places looking for information. And so usually at this point, the conversation would turn to, and the student would say, why do I have to look at all these places for my research? And I know this is an example from academic library, but I'm sure if you work in a public library, you have a similar situation of trying to navigate your users to the most relevant resources for their topic or what they're looking for. I also mentioned I worked in a government library. We had a very similar problem, a little bit different, but kind of same idea, where the scientists had their one favorite database and they always went to that database, whether it was the most relevant resource for their topic. So the goal of Ebsco Discovery Service is to create that one search that student was asking me about. Why do I have to search all these different resources, all these different places? And the goal of Ebsco Discovery Service, EDS, is to create that search where I can go, I can look for my topic, and then I can get results from the library catalog, so books, videos, I can get articles from databases, open access content, material from that archival collection, all in a single search. So the EDS index has more than 3.4 billion searchable records. It has content from over 20,000 publishers, including 3,000 open access publishers. And again, the goal is pulling in all the library's resources into a single search. So books, ebooks, journals, databases, IR, ILS, videos. But besides having a searchable index to do this, we then need to get it back out to the users in a way that they'll find what they're looking for almost immediately, because we know that users aren't going to scroll through a bunch of results. So we have a sophisticated relevance ranking, and our relevance ranking matches on subject headings from controlled vocabularies. We recognize the value in subject headings for kind of really explaining what the article is about, but we also look at other fields as well, such as article title, author keywords, keywords within abstracts, other fields, and we also look at keywords within text as well. But we don't stop there with just the relevance ranking. We also add a value ranking as well, based on years of user research. So we find in most cases, researchers, library users are looking for recently published content over older content. So if two items have a similar relevance ranking, the one that's more recent is going to be scored higher. We look at document type, we look at document length, so that quarter-page editorial will be weighted less than that 4 to 6 page article. And then we can also do things for local library collections as well, such as the library catalog or institutional repository, giving them a heavier or lower weight, depending on the library's needs. So that's a little bit of background on what Ebsco Discovery Service is. Again, the idea is to create that kind of single search experience for users to get access to all the library's resources. So this is where I thought you might be asking, what does this have to do with Koha? What is a library services engineer? Why is this guy up here talking to us? And my colleague often likes to talk about what we do. He kind of frames it around cars. I don't know anything about cars, so that doesn't really work for me. But I thought, hey, this is in Portland. I like bicycles. I can talk about what I do in terms of bicycles. So if nothing else, I'm considering this presentation a success because I got to include some pictures of bicycles in it. So if we think of EDS like a bicycle, I don't know if you can see that picture too well, but that's kind of a typical road bike. So when I said bicycle, that may be what most of you thought about. But for me, I like traveling by bicycle. I do a lot of trips on my bike. So while I need something that looks kind of similar to that, it's a little bit different. I've got racks on it to carry my bags. I've got upright handlebars for kind of more comfortable saddle position, but not too different from that first bike. If you're a triathlete, you might need a bicycle that looks a little bit different. Has aero bars, maybe lighter wheels, seat in a position to allow you to go faster. Or maybe you live in Portland and you need the double-decker bicycle to cruise around town. So again, it looks a little bit different, but it's still not that different from all the other pictures that we've seen. And maybe even better yet, you need a special bicycle for the Portland Worldwide Naked Bike Ride. We'll skip the picture on that one. My point is that if you look at a site that has Ebsco Discovery Service, a lot of them look similar at their base, just like that original picture of a bicycle. But it's a very customizable product. And so our role as library service engineers is to customize the Ebsco Discovery experience for each library that uses it, just kind of as we customize each of these bicycles for each of those riders there. As I mentioned, I worked in libraries for several years before joining Ebsco, and many of my colleagues as well have worked in libraries. We meet with thousands of libraries every year, and so we kind of share those experiences from our own library days, from meeting with other libraries, best practices from our user research team, and help libraries customize their Ebsco Discovery experience. All right. So how does this get with Koha? I thought you were going to tell me. I'm going to tell you now. So my colleague Alvet, who works in Australia and New Zealand, was working with the New Zealand National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research, as well as Catalyst IT. And the Institute was interested in adding Ebsco Discovery Service for the benefit of bringing all the library's content into a single search. But they were very happy with Koha. They had just migrated to Koha. They didn't want to give their users a new interface to switch to. So there was this collaboration that happened with the community in New Zealand with, again, Catalyst IT, Alvet, the Institute, to create a plugin that would incorporate the EDS API into the Koha interface. And again, so what that would do is it would bring all those features of EDS, not in the Ebsco host interface, but in the Koha interface. And the plugin has continued to develop. It was first released in 2014, and it's continued to develop through the community involvement. Bywater's been active in it. Again, Catalyst IT, libraries, and others. So let's talk about EDS and Koha together. So if you think back to my previous slide where EDS has more than 3.4 billion searchable records, now with the Koha plugin, it can have all that content that EDS has. So all that content from the ILS, from the databases, the journals, videos, institutional repository, into that single search, but now Koha is your interface. I don't know how well these screenshots will appear, so I apologize for that. But I just wanted to show a comparison of EDS in the Ebsco host interface, so you can, well, if you can see the slides a little bit better, you'll be able to see that we're getting results from a variety of different content sources. We have a research starter, which gives us an encyclopedia overview on my topic. And then if I look at a Koha installation with the plugin, it looks very similar. I have that research starter. I have my content from a variety of different sources. If I go back to my Ebsco host UI, again, I can see it's pulling the full text for my journal subscriptions. It's pulling in the facets for refinement. And again, if I jump into Koha, I see all those features and functionality as well. Actually, as I was practicing this presentation, I sometimes forgot to move the slides forward because they look so similar. So again, just in summary, the Ebsco Koha plugin features. So it includes that EDS content index from those billions of records. It also includes that relevance ranking, that value ranking, and another feature that I didn't mention, which is enhanced subject precision. And as a librarian, this is a feature that I think is really cool. So what our taxonomists at Ebsco have done is they've gone through and mapped common user search terms up to what we call a unified subject index. And then they map the concepts from that unified subject index to the various thesauri, like MESH or APA. They've done it for about 74 different databases. So if you think back to that relevance ranking that I mentioned earlier, that matches on subject headings, we're trying to bridge that misconnection between the terminology that users might use for a concept and then the terminology that the controlled vocabularies might use for that same concept. So that's also part of the plugin. Facets for search refinement. We talked about the research starters feature. EDS also works with our knowledge base and our publication tool. So if a user is looking for a particular journal, and that integrates as well. So if in the Koha plugin, a user types in JAMA or Nature or another publication, the library subscribes to that, they'll get a placard at the top of their result list, allowing them to search directly in that journal. It also includes a journal title search as well. So if you have a user that wants to do a specific journal search, they can search for that name of that publication and then see where the library, what databases it has in full text. And there's more features as well. So that's a little bit of a background of where we've been with the plugin. So I wanted to go next and talk about what is new with the plugin. We had a major release this year in 2018, so I wanted to talk about some of the features that came out in that with the plugin. So one of those is an autocomplete. So as users start typing their search into the plugin search bar, they'll start to see it populated with search terms from EDS users worldwide. So as search terms gain popularity, they become part of the autocomplete. And so a benefit of this method is it allows new and trending terms to appear quickly in this autocomplete. So as things are getting more popular in the news, you'll see them start to appear really quickly in the autocomplete. And the benefit of the autocomplete, if you're a terrible speller like me, it really helps when you're doing demos and you can't spell right, so it saves you a little bit of embarrassment. But for students, the real benefit is that it helps validate their research topic. So as they're typing and they're starting to see their topic come up in that list, it lets them know, oh, hey, I'm on the right track. This is a valid topic. Other people are searching for that. We also added an auto-suggest feature. So again, I don't know if you can see too well, but I misspelled Fatherhood Initiative. And EDS is telling me, did you mean Fatherhood Initiative with the correct spelling? So I can go ahead and click on that, and then it's going to run the search for the correct spelling of Fatherhood Initiative. And we took that one step further and actually added an autocorrect feature as well. It's a little bit hard to show in a PowerPoint, but I initially misspelled term Presbyterian, switched out a Y for an A. And so the system didn't give me just a did you mean, it just automatically auto-corrected the search. It had a high confidence that it knew I was looking for Presbyterian. And so it says, your search was corrected for Presbyterian. Did you mean my misspelling of Presbyterian? So it's a really cool feature. This is something that our users are familiar with from searching on the web and using search engines. And as more users use this feature gets smarter. So if I keep doing that fatherhood initiative in my demos and keep clicking on that, eventually the system will automatically autocorrect fatherhood initiative. If this Presbyterian misspelling was actually a new concept, and people started clicking on saying, no, I didn't want you to autocorrect that, I wanted the did you mean, it'll automatically stop autocorrecting and just go back to giving the did you mean suggestion as well. And one thing I should mention too with the autocorrect, the auto-suggest, and the autocomplete feature as well, another benefit to kind of mining the search logs for this information, not only does it work with English language, but it works with other languages as well. So if there's popular concepts in language besides English, they will appear in the autocomplete as well. Another new enhancement was quick view. So if you're an EBSCOhost user, you might be familiar with this on your result list. If the full text is available in an EBSCOhost database and there's images in the full text, they'll appear on the result list, allowing users to hover over and quickly see those images. So it's a great way to kind of, if you're looking for an image for a paper or a graph, it's a quick way right from the result list to view those images without having to go into the full text. The plugin has been translated into 5 languages, English, Arabic, Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian so far. And the translations are applied based on the selected language in the interface. And there are translation files on the GitHub page, which I'll show at the end here. So if you don't like the translations kind of out of the box, you can customize those. As I mentioned, one of the things that library service engineers do is we do a lot of customization with EBSCO Discovery Service and our EBSCOhost interface. We do that with tools that we call apps and widgets. So we wanted to kind of expand that functionality for some of our more popular apps and widgets to Koha. So we built in an integrated app manager for further customization. And what this allows us to do is for popular apps or apps that get requested by users using the Koha plugin, we can kind of modify them to work in Koha. We can add them to this app manager. And so what do I mean by apps? I want to talk about one of the ones that we customize, and it's probably one of the most popular ones that we add to EDS. And the idea for it came from MIT when they were switching from their OPAC to EBSCO Discovery Service as their as their front-end search. And they were looking at their search logs in their OPAC. Anyone want to guess at MIT what one of the top search terms was in their library catalog? Shout it out. Good guess. What was that? No, parking, another good guess. It was actually library hours. So they said, well, when EBSCO Discovery Service becomes our default search, is there something you can do when people type in library hours? And I'm going to show an example from a library I was working with. This is a neat feature. This is available even if you don't use EBSCO Discovery Service. If you're just an EBSCOhost user, if you haven't seen this, this is in the standard reports. There's a top search term report. So you can see what users are searching in your EBSCO databases and EDS. This is particularly powerful for EBSCO Discovery Service because we were at this library, we were looking at their search log, and I don't know if you can see, but one of the top search terms was the database named CINAH, which is a nursing database. Makes sense, they have a large nursing population. A little bit further down was a misspelling of CINAH. So this was before the autocorrect feature. So even though CINAH was indexed in EBSCO Discovery Service, we wanted to do something for them that when the user typed in CINAH, they got more than articles about CINAH. So what we did is we created this item matcher. We did the same idea for MIT in their library hours, that if the user types in CINAH, or that misspelling of CINAH, they'll say, where are you looking for CINAH, and give them a link out to the database. So as I said, we kind of modified this app for use in Koha. And so you can see that example of library hours. So user types in library hours, because the Koha is the default search on the library's website. Users see a search box and search for whatever they're looking for. And now they get something helpful besides books and articles on library hours. And so this is based on a XML file that the library can customize with different search terms. So if you're using EDS, I always recommend taking a look at those search logs and see if your users are searching for interesting things like parking. We had one library that they saw a lunch menu because they were above the cafeteria in the campus center. So they put a link to the lunch menus. Never know what your users are searching for. So that's a really cool report to look at. So again, on the GitHub page, some of the apps that we have that have been developed and are made compatible for Koha are available and can be added to the app manager. So upcoming additions to the ES API and the Koha plugin. I don't have release dates for these, but these are some things that are in progress. One is the ability to download citation data in RIS format. So if you're an academic library, this will be particularly relevant because a lot of the citation management tools require citation styles in RIS format. So you'll be able to download from the Koha plugin the citation in RIS format and then upload it into your citation manager. If you just need a quick citation, again, if you're familiar with Ebsco host, you know we have that site format in our interface. We'll be adding that to the API and then again to the Koha plugin. So you'll be able to click a cite button and get your items cited in APA, MLA, and a handful of other citation styles that we have. And the last feature that we'll be adding soon, this one is probably a little bit further out, it's a little bit more complex to add into the API, is this idea of hyperlinked database names. And so if you can see where my little finger is pointing there, that's the name that these, where this citation came from. It came from the database PsycInfo. So one of the requests that we've had from libraries over the years is I want to be able to my users to go from the discovery result list back into the databases, maybe for more sophisticated searching, take advantage of a thesaurus, whatever the reason may be, but I don't want them to have to go back out of the discovery service, find my database, A to Z list page, try to remember what the name of that database was, go down that list. So it'd be really cool if I could go from ES result list right into that database. And that's what that hyperlinked database name does. So if I click on my PsycInfo link, it takes me into the PsycInfo interface. In this case, it's on Ebsco host. But we've got this feature running for 10 or 12 different interfaces. And we'll be adding more as well. So again, it'll allow the user to go from EDS plugin in Koha into the native database interface. So I'm going to wrap up. I've got the link to the EDS API Koha plugin GitHub page. There is a user group breakout session, I believe, tomorrow at 2 o'clock for plugin users or people that are interested in using the plugin. And I'll be at the conference the rest of today and tomorrow, so if you have any questions or want to talk about the plugin, I'm happy to do that. The feedback that we get, as I mentioned, we've got a lot of different people kind of working on the plugin. Bywater helping us, Ebsco, Catalyst IT, and of course plugin users as well. So it's a real community effort. So definitely interested in talking about it with you all. So I think I have about 5 minutes for questions, if there are any questions. One thing I will say is I don't actually do the development on the plugin, so if there's any kind of technical plugin development questions, I'm happy to take notes and get back to you on that, but I don't actually do the development.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
One of the things that our library, we use the EDS, and one of the things that we've noticed is how information, the results come up. We use the Ebsco interface over the Koha interface simply because there was a little bit more styling and content to it. But we're wondering, I know there was talk about a bento box style results. Do you know anything about that? If there's any development in that, are you guys working towards that type of a result page?
Yeah, so for the plugin or for kind of EDS in general?
Just in general.
In general, yeah. So we did some testing on the Bento interface on our user research team, and it did not test well with users. So we are moving away from the idea of doing a Bento interface. But one of the things that we are looking at doing is, I call it more of a tabbed interface. So you still have your kind of all results, but then at the top, you might be able to limit to books or journals or things like broken out that way. So we're looking for more of an idea like that as opposed to the Bento box display. Because what we found with the Bento box display was that it was information overload. So especially for school assignments, if the assignment didn't actually require any book, a journal article, students just got overwhelmed with the amount of information that was on the pages boxes. So we decided to move away from that and go with this different approach. So that is something that we are working on.
Yeah, it's been, the challenge for us has been, it's been difficult to hone in how to present results, because I mean, if you do a search on dogs and you have 25 articles that were posted on dogs in your databases, it's putting the most recent information towards the top, and people are just simply wanting a book on dogs, and they have to dig for it a little bit. So whatever we can do to help tweak the results so it's a little bit more intuitive for the patrons to get to what they want. Instead of want a book on dogs is great, but also be able to show, oh yeah, but we have all this other stuff good as well.
Yeah, so I think that enhancement I was talking about, the kind of new interface design will help with that, because it will have these formats kind of right at the top there, so it'll make it easier to drill in. We can certainly talk about things about customizing the search box on the website as well, to maybe pre-limit, so someone wanted a book, they could check that right at the start in the search box. There might be things that we could do there as well as that.
Inspired by the last comment, what we do is that we provide the student kind of how should I explain? Okay, we have usually tabs for library catalog search and then the electronic resources, and so they are displayed separately. But then there is the possibility to raise a couple of results from the other tab to the tab to the library or the user searches. So if you say that the user is using the library catalog tab and searches for dogs, he gets the first few results from the library catalog. Then there is a little box that says, hey, by the way, have some results from electronic resources too, and search a couple of those, and then continues with the library catalog results. That's what we found to be somehow useful to showcase what's available in the other tab. And it works the other way around also. When we get results from the electronic resources, you can also have this little box telling that, oh, by the way, there are books also in the library catalog.
Yeah, we've done something similar for that as well. Salt Lake County Library, if you look at their Ebsco Discovery Service, the exact idea that you're saying, that we've done that in theirs as well. There's a little box. It's mostly articles, but then they say, hey, here's some results from the catalog at the top as well. So that's a great suggestion. 30 seconds. Last question. I know it's snack time. So thank you very much.